Hello everyone and welcome back to Fellows in Fellowship.
All right, guys. We told you last week that we have an interview this week, and here he is. One of the coolest guys I've ever met, Curtis Carmack, the ministry intern at Maplewood Baptist Church, just right down the road. Curtis, just introduce yourself. Who is Curtis Carmack?
Yeah. So, hey, I'm Curtis Carmack. I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. Now I live in East Bend, North Carolina.
Culture shock.
Yeah, a little bit of culture shock. I'm the ministry intern at Maplewood in Yakima. And that's me, pretty much in a nutshell.
That's you in a nutshell?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to play a little game with you to start.
All right.
So you have a minute to answer 10 questions.
Okay.
And just so we don't lose any time, I'm going to make sure you can see how long it's been. So it just stresses you out that much more.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I'll let you see it. Yeah, you do the first one.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Ready and go.
Pizza or wings?
Pizza.
Favorite summer activity?
Running.
If you had a superhero name, what would it be?
Captain Wave Runner.
If you could star in any movie or TV show, what would it be?
iCarly.
How would the world be different if bananas were illegal?
It wouldn't be as fun.
If you have 3 dogs, 11 of them are asleep, the cow is barking, it's February 30th, how much is a penny worth?
That's it.
How many holes are in a straw?
2.
Is the glass half full or half empty?
Half full.
How many seasons are in a summer?
1.
Now, this is the best one of them all.
Okay.
Adam or Jesse?
Oh. I can't choose.
He's picking the same answer. He's picking the same answer. If y'all don't know that, Jesse's my twin brother, and we've been in the church with Curtis for a long time, so we have to see who the favorite one is. All right, so now that we know a little bit more about you, Curtis, let's get into a little bit more about who you are and what you do. So you mentioned that you're the ministry intern at Maplewood, and you are in seminary now. I thought you'd done graduated, so I had that a little backwards in my mind. But when did you feel called to go into ministry?
Yeah, so I think I first felt the call to go into ministry when I was 15. So kind of early on, but when I was 15, I was actually in a small group that was led by my brother. And he asked the question, super simple question, you would think. He was like, what does Jesus mean to you? And I was like, well, I've grown up in church all my life, like, he's the Savior, like, he died on the cross for my sins, like, he was like, no, like, not all the basic knowledge about Jesus, what does he mean to you? And at that point, I just kind of, I broke down and I was like, what does Jesus really mean to me? And from that point, I really dug into Scripture and felt the call to do this for the rest of my life, to teach and to show other people what Jesus really means, who Jesus really is for the rest of my life. So yeah, 15 from a small group that my brother led.
Nathan, we'll get a little contrast here. When did you, because I'm asking both of you, and I've heard the story of both of you just for people home, but when did you feel called? Because yours is a little bit different.
Yeah, so I actually got the call last year to go into ministry. As you guys know, I was up at Appalachian doing my thing up there.
Dude, my thanks.
Yeah, my thing, right, from iCarly. No, I was up there studying music, of all things, and while I was on campus, I just became so much more aware of the lostness and the darkness that was on campus, and just how much people really needed the gospel, and also the fact that not a lot of people were bringing the gospel to them, and that really burdened my heart, and I felt like, maybe God had used me to help people, get to know Jesus, and then later on get to find out what he does mean to you, right? So that's where I started my journey, and then COVID kind of came through that storm we had, and that was a bad time for a lot of people, but it really helped me transition from Appalachian to seminary, which I'm also in seminary right now. But yeah, so I was, I guess, 19 whenever I got the call. I guess still kind of young, but not as young as Curtis here, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a difficult decision to leave.
Yeah.
Because you got into whatever program it was, and it was a pretty selective program, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very selective.
Oh,
But I won't get into all that. But yeah, I mean, it was difficult in the sense that by transferring schools and going to seminary, for me that meant losing scholarships and meant leaving some good friends I made and good relationships and that kind of stuff. So it was hard from the world's perspective, right? But I just had to kind of think a minute and think, what would Jesus do, right? Like all those bands you used to have as a kid, what would Jesus do? Or where was he guiding me, I guess, in this case. But I think I made the right decision.
Oh, you definitely did.
So, where have you done ministry at, or where have you worked?
Yeah, so my first opportunity, I guess, in ministry was a ministry intern too. It was back in my hometown church in Middletown, Ohio, and I was just kind of working with the youth there over a summer, and now I'm at Maplewood. That's my ministry experience.
I'm telling you, it's a culture shock. It's a culture shock. He comes to Maplewood every day, and he sees me and Jesse walk in. He's like, "Do I really want to go in?" You mentioned that you're from Ohio. How did you get down to East Bend, North Carolina?
Yeah, so it sounds like it would be complicated, but it's not really. So I ran cross country and track in middle school and high school, and some coach from Salisbury, North Carolina, at this school called Catawba College, emailed me. Don't know how he got my email. Don't know how he knew about Miamisburg, Ohio, but he emailed me and he said, based off your times, I want you to come and visit our campus. I think you would be a good fit for our team. So I was like, well, I don't know what a Salisbury is, but I'm gonna go.
They got good steak.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down there. That's the only thing I knew. Salisbury steak. I thought they were the same. But I was like, I'm gonna go down there, and I loved the campus. I ran for the team. I studied religion and philosophy while I was there, and I met my wife my sophomore year, her freshman year, and she brought me to Maplewood, and it's.
Dun. Nathan, where all have you done ministry? Where have you, what all have you done?
Well, I've not traveled very much. I'm just kind of around,
He's a local guy.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with
homegrown.
that.
But most of my ministry, though, it's been locally. It's been really just helping churches in the area. My church, Union, over across the way. I've been really working with that church to help build up our evangelical missions right now. Just trying to rebuild after COVID, more or less. That church has taken a real big hit as far as outreach. So I've been working with the pastor and other leadership to try to get that rebuilt back up, dealing with evangelism. But I've also been able to go to some different churches and speak there and just being an encouragement to those Christians. And let's see what else. Up in Boone, I still have some friends up in Boone from App State. We get together sometimes and we'll go up there and we'll go out and do stuff, do some evangelism, sharing the gospel, praying for people, whatever it might be. So basically, I just try to be an encouragement to those around me now. God's been opening doors, and as He has been, I've been walking through them. So, I don't know. That's weird. Anyways, yeah, local.
So, this is where mine and Jacob's questions really end, because neither one of us have been or have gone to seminary. So the majority of it, we'll pop in occasionally, but our last question is this: when and where? I'll ask Curtis first. Where did you go to seminary? When did you start?
Yeah, so the seminary that I go to is called Regent University. It's in Virginia Beach. I do everything online, so when COVID hit, it was the same. for me, which was good because mine wasn't as a culture shock as everybody else's was. They were in school and then they were virtual. I was just virtual the whole time.
That was difficult.
But when I started was right after I graduated from Catawba. So I graduated May of 2019 from Catawba, and then August of 2019 I started in seminary. But yeah, and one thing that Nathan brought up that I think is really important to know is when you feel that call to ministry, it does cost you something. And that's not always easy to deal with, because for Nathan it was his time at App. And another thing about the call too that's kind of interesting is you hear that cliche that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. In my own life, I feel like I was the least qualified to be serving in ministry. Like when I was in first grade, I could barely read well. I could never speak in front of people well. Like my face would always get red. Like I'd always stumble over my words. And God was like, "You're gonna lead in ministry." I was like, Billy Graham, Curtis Carmack, that can't speak, can't read. But yeah, Regent University, long way around. Regent University 2019.
What about you,
Very
Nathan?
nice. Well, right now I'm going to seminary through the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. That school is out of Louisville, Kentucky, so I'm doing all my stuff online as well. I will stay home and work a little bit and be around. Once again, local. But yeah.
Nothing wrong with local.
Yeah. Hey. But yeah. Right now though, a little different from Curtis, because he went to Catawba first, got your bachelor's, then went on to seminary, right?
Yeah.
Well, right now, going through Southern, I'm actually working towards my bachelor's and master's of divinity all at the same time, right? So the kind of course or program that they have there, I'm able to do that. And it sounds really good. Like, it sounds cool. It sounds awesome, right? Like, that's the best deal ever. But I'm going to tell you, that's a big workload, you know? But anyways, that aside.
Is it a 4-year program?
It's a 5-year program.
5 year.
Yeah. But
either way, it's still.
yeah,
it's still
yeah.
work.
They definitely push you. To get all that stuff in the 5 years, you got to kind of be at a faster pace. But it's been tough. But I mean, I think it's been worthwhile. And the best thing about it too is that, like, talking about sacrifice, right? You have to sacrifice something for the ministry. When I got the call, I sacrificed a whole lot. And the more I get into this, the further I go and keep going, the more I'm starting to sacrifice as well. It's just a never-ending cycle, it seems like. But that being said, though, in my own life, I've been able to see the fruits of that, and that to me makes it all worthwhile. To see that I can share the gospel with somebody, or I can share a piece of information or scripture with somebody, or explain something that really just encourages them. That's those little nuggets of encouragement along the way. It makes it all worthwhile. I think what you put in, you always get out, right? Yeah.
Nathan, we passed you the torch.
Man, that's dangerous.
It's the Nathan show now.
Don't burn it down.
Man, so
Don't burn it down.
thanks, Adam. So being a ministry intern, right? What all does that entail for you right now at Maplewood? Like, what's your primary responsibilities there?
Yeah, so right now at Maplewood, I'm mainly responsible for the students and families, kind of the discipleship of really the parents first, and then trickling down into the students. Of course, as Adam said, I worked a lot with the students. That's kind of was my original passion when I felt the call to ministry. Just being able to equip and encourage the next generation to be on mission for Christ. Because if you look around in this generation that we live in this world that we live in, there's not a lot of Jesus. When you see like the latest rap stars, you see the latest trends in culture, and you honestly get kind of discouraged. So my primary role and passion. It's good when you can have both, but is to equip everybody that's going to be the church of the future, the church now, to be on mission for Christ, and to be as the disciples said, when they saw Jesus, they were compelled to share. When they encountered Jesus, they were compelled to, like the woman at the well, like she encountered Jesus and she was like, I'm going to tell everybody. And even when Jesus was like, don't tell anybody, they were like, no, I'm going to tell everybody because of what I've experienced. So, yeah, students and families. I always joke when somebody asks me that question. I said, everybody 50 and under is my main responsibility. But yeah, that's it.
Very cool. So kind of going along with that too, this question can be, I guess, answered as broad as you want it to be. But being a ministry intern right now, has God given you any kind of clear vision for the future? Maybe here at Maplewood or going beyond? Has there been some kind of calling there?
I was going to close with that one.
Oh,
No, that was
I'm
good.
sorry. You want me to say that?
Same wavelength. Same
Okay.
wavelength. I like it.
all right.
Yeah. I feel like I'm different.
He is different.
Like when people ask that question, when my wife asked that question, when I asked that question, like I don't know that in my life there's ever been like a clear cut plan. It's always kind of been, God, I trust you. What you open up, I will walk through that door. Like you were saying earlier, like God opens doors and you walk through it. Like this opportunity right now. God opens a door and then I just say, like send me. I'll go. And that's not always like the most secure thing to feel, like you don't know what's going to be next. But that's when you have to have faith. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah. There's when I was talking about this with my pastor back in my home church, talking about the call itself, right, and how God reveals His plans to us. I think it's good that you bring up your wife in that too, right? Because while the man or the pastor or whoever is definitely called, there's a lot of responsibility on the wife as well. My pastor, he always likes to say that, not my pastor, but his wife, she likes to say that while he may have got the call, she didn't even hear the phone ring, right? So kind of just swept along for the ride. But that's such an important part. I have an uncle. He's just new to the ministry as well. He's pastor over at Maplewood Baptist Church, but he's told me before that whenever you start to work in ministry in a church or with some kind of group discipling, that's a big responsibility, and that's a lot on you, right? But it's also important to not lose sight of your home. That's your first ministry, right? Your wife and kids. So I think it's really good that you bring that up. But going on with that though, are there any more questions I don't need to ask? Or
No, I just thought it was funny.
Oh,
We were on
okay.
the same wavelength.
Okay, great minds think alike, I guess. Cool deal though. So how much longer do you have in seminary? You're in it right now.
Yeah, so Lord willing, the plan is to finish up fall of 2022.
Okay.
Don't remind him of that. I mentioned that earlier. He said, "Don't remind me. I got 3 more semesters."
Yeah. Okay. Awesome stuff.
How much? You got 4 years, don't you?
I've got a few more.
Yeah.
Few more go-rounds. No. Ideally, in a perfect world that doesn't exist, I should be done about 3.5 years, maybe 4.
Okay.
That kind of time frame. If I choose to take summers off, and be smart with my resources, but yeah, about 4 years or so.
Okay.
So I've got a little ways, but putting that aside. Thanks for reminding me of that, Adam.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Hey, I'm just getting started too. I'm just getting started.
Man, okay. But cool deal. So over at Maplewood, right? How is I guess, how long have you been there? Have you been there during the pandemic, or was that before?
Yeah, so I was there a little bit before. My 1 year mark at Maplewood kind of was intertwined with the pandemic, so I was like, what a great time to start in ministry. Everything shuts down. You have to figure out how to disciple and how to minister to in the midst of not being able to see people, not being able to be close to people, everybody being afraid of one another. How do you still encourage when everything is discouraging?
Yeah.
But yeah, like both and. So I was there a little bit before. That's when I really got to know Adam and his brother and a lot of other of our students. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, I'm new to ministry.
When is your 1 year mark at Maplewood?
It was May 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I felt like you had been there, not for a while, but you had been there for a good amount of time before everything happened.
Yeah, so May 31st, 2020 was my 1 year mark, and then now I'm working on 2 years at Maplewood.
Very cool. So like going along with that too, like you said, a lot of adjustments, a lot of changes because of the pandemic. How had that changed for you? You know, like how, like, words are hard. How were you affected by it? Like, how was your ministry affected by it?
So yeah, big time. That's kind of the first thing that comes to my mind. And one thing that you brought up earlier, kind of jumping back before I jump forward, that's super important no matter what the ministry looks like, is always keeping most important things first. So like your home. I know you're not necessarily married yet, but when that time comes, especially when ministry gets more stressful like a pandemic, always keeping that priority first. Like, it does you no benefit if everybody sees you as this man of God, but your wife doesn't. Something important that somebody told me is, do the people that know you most respect you the most? If they don't, there's, like, you're living a double life. So when the pandemic hit, all the external stresses, all of the how do I minister now, how do I disciple now, how do I reach out now, the first person that I had to worry about, not necessarily like worry, but be intentional about is my wife. And making sure that I don't give so much to the ministry that I have nothing to give at home. So making that balance, always staying anchored in the Word every morning. Like, if, especially in ministry, but anybody in general as a Christ follower, if you're separated from the Word, especially when a pandemic hits, there is no anchor in your life. So if somebody says, we can't gather, you're like, man, how do I fabricate all of this stuff? But no, it's like Jesus said to his disciples before he left this earth, when he was calling them to make disciples, he said, I am with you always. And we can't forget that. Like, Jesus is not saying, go and make disciples because you're good enough to. Go and make disciples because you're this gifted person. No, go and make disciples, and I am with you always till the end of the age. Like, you're not going out alone. So when a pandemic hits, you're like, how do I do all these things? This is so hard. Like, the world is shutting down. Classes are shutting down. Like looking on TV, people aren't meeting it for March Madness. They're in their warm-ups and everybody's leaving. Like, how do I do this now? When everything looks impossible, Jesus is like, I am with you. Don't ever forget me in the midst of doing all that you have to do. Because it was never about what you have to do. It's what I've called you to do. So yeah, just balancing all of that and staying anchored in the Word is super important. Because if I forgot all of that, then everything that happened after March 15th or whenever it was would have probably taken me out of the ministry because it was just too much
Yeah.
on my own.
Adam, how are you on time?
How are you on time, Curtis?
Because I want to tell you, I can go as long as we can.
It is 9:31. How long do we got to?
Just a few more moments.
All right.
It's okay.
Okay.
Nathan, you get another question or so, and then I'll give both of you one. To hit,
Okay.
and then we'll
All right.
be done.
Oh man, I can make this a good one. That's too much pressure, Adam. Okay. Okay, very important question. Very important for
There
any
you go.
Christian.
There you go.
Tell us a little bit about your testimony. You know, how did you come to know Jesus?
Yeah. So originally, I guess it wasn't like an exciting story. I grew up in the church. My grandparents went to church, and my parents went to church. We went to church. But I think there's a difference in going to church and being a Christian.
Yeah.
I think that's what we miss, but when Christ became real to me, was again in another small group setting. It was when I was 9, and my mom, of all people, and that, man, this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about family ministry, because like, if a pastor does something and says something and there, like, nothing changes in the home, like, the student, their kids, like, there's a less likelihood that they're going to change either. But yeah, so my mom was leading a Bible study, and it was one of those moments where, and you don't necessarily know how to describe it, like Jesus became real to you. Like the gospel became real to you. You had heard it in Sunday school and all that stuff, but it became real. Like it actually impacted you. So yeah, from that moment, man, a couple of months from that, I accepted Christ and got baptized and went on my way, I guess. It had become real to me, but I didn't necessarily know how to live it out. And when I was in my teenage years, I was still trying to like go to youth group and figure out, go to mission trips and all these things, like all of these things that planted seeds in my life, but they never really fully bloomed until I was out on my own, and I had to be like, what is this Christian life, this Christian walk, what does it really look like lived out? Apart from mandatory youth group, apart from my parents drilling it into my head like that Christ is alive and that like we're to be anchored in the Word, like what does this look like when it's on my own terms? So yeah, like going to school, and that's when Christ became even more real to me, and every day after that, like you make that first choice to follow Christ, but every day is a decision to follow Christ, or not to. You know, so I guess maybe in a nutshell, that's my testimony. I grew up in church, but throughout my life, Christ has become more real to me.
I forgot who said it. It's a quote not original to me. I'm not that smart, but someone said that the gospel is so simple that a child can understand it, but it is so rich and full and complex that you can study for a lifetime and never fully understand it, right? And so the gospel isn't something that you use once just to get that salvation, but it's something that you always grow in, continue to grow in. So I think it's really cool you've been able to start off, but then keep on, and then help others do that too. That's what it's all about. So commend you for that.
Yeah, and really important. I was just listening to this man by the name of Johnny Hunt. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he something that kind of speaks to what I was just sort of rambling on about. He said the way that God has designed our lives, our relationship with Him. Man cannot understand the gospel, or man cannot understand God by his own wisdom. And he said the most important thing about the cross is not that like by our own wisdom, we can understand the significance of what Christ did on that cross. But on the cross was displayed, like most fully, the power of God. And he said it's not about man's wisdom, because if we're left to man's wisdom, we see what happens. But if we're left to the power of God in a person's life, that's it. That's it.
All right, so I'll send this one Nathan's way first.
Okay.
Not that going into ministry isn't for the gratification of it, I guess, but what has been as both of you have mentioned, it was a difficult choice to go, especially for you leaving what you were doing to go into seminary school. But what has been that one moment or moments that just smacked you upside the face and said, yeah, and made you say this was worth it, this is where I need to be?
Yeah. I think for me it was just a collection of small moments along the way. Moments where I had ministered to somebody or had discipled someone, and then later they come back and tell me about, them going on to share the gospel with their friend at work, or going on to disciple one of their friends who is new to Christianity or just received Christ. Seeing that my work is not in vain, right? That's what Scripture tells us, is that work for the Lord is never in vain. He's going to cash in, let's say. So it's kind of just seeing those small moments, bit by bit, right? Just knowing that you're making an impact. It doesn't seem like it at first. Sometimes it doesn't seem like you're making any kind of headway. It can get very discouraging. But it's that faith and trust that Chris was talking about earlier. Faith that God's leading you in that direction, coming back and having that fruit of your own labor come forth. So.
And Curtis, I'll send it again your way. It's not about, and both of y'all mentioned it as well, it's not about the praise that you get yourself. It's just what's been that moment for you, or moments that kind of hit you and made you say, yeah, this is where I need to be.
Yeah, I like what Nathan said. It's about small moments. Honestly, one of the coolest, just a few weeks ago, was another one of those small moments. But there's this young lady, probably in her early 20s, had 2 young kids, and was just in this place in her life where she was just broken. There was no hope, and I visited with her just to kind of see how she was doing, talk to her a little bit, and an opportunity opened up where I really got to share with her, the core of who she is. Because this person was really struggling with, significance and worth and all that, and I just got to share with her, you'll insert your name here. Do you know that you were made in the image and likeness of God for His glory? Genesis 1:26-27 and Colossians 1:16, that's you. And I told her, so much so that God, seeing the state that we were in our sin debt, sent His one and only Son to die on the cross for our sins because He desired that relationship. I wrote that on a piece of paper. I put her name in there. You insert your name. We're made in the image and likeness of God for His glory. So much so that God sent His Son for your sin to die on the cross. And not only that, but to raise again so that you would have hope, that you would have a future. And to see this person see that, man, that's worth everything in the world. To really allow somebody to see in their brokenness, like probably more than we can ever experience. Seeing who she is in God's eyes, not in my eyes, because who she is in my eyes doesn't mean much. But who she is in the Creator's eyes, it means everything. But moments like that, where people really see it, where people really get it, where Christ becomes alive in their life, it's worth it. It's worth all the discouragement. It's worth all of the sacrifice. It's worth everything. But moments like that.
Well, Curtis, thank you for your time this morning. You got to get back over to Maplewood. Jimmy, we're sending him. He's on his way. He's coming. But yeah, Curtis, thank you for coming. It was a lot of fun to have you today. We'll have you in the future. Anytime you want to come back, just let us know. Let me know. Send me a text, anything. But yeah, we're going to close it real quick. And next week is Easter, so we'll have something for you again next week. And just join us on our we'll just end it how we always do. Join us next time on
Fellows in Fellowship.